Do you feel the vibes?
Here we go. There he is, your man Rico, returning for the Just Cause 2 and Just Cause 3. Of course he's in Just Cause 4. But what is brand new to Just Cause 4 is this world known as Salice. It is the biggest world in Just Cause history, but also it is the most packed world in Just Cause history. More to do, more to see, more to interact with, and more to experience than any other game in the Just Cause franchise. Now, one of the reasons we've done this is the different biomes or the different environments that you're going to get to experience. You can see another one over here. That's the Alpine environment. If you go up there, it's going to be snowy, mountainous, a lot more risky than where we are now. And if you look over to the right again, you will see a tornado, which is one of the new extreme weather effects in Just Cause 4. If you do run into one of those, it's going to rip through the environment, whether you're there or not, and it will become a serious threat. But we'll focus on Rico himself for now. Obviously returning from the past games is the parachute, everybody loves that. And everybody loves the wingsuit, which also makes its return. But obviously all have been tweaked, all have been changed, they feel better, they play better, they interact with the game itself better, and they have new attachments, they have new things you can do, which again, you'll see as we go through the game. None of that would be fun though, if everybody's favourite item didn't return to Just Cause, which is of course, the grappling hook. And again, you can do so much more with the grappling hook this time. I will show you that as we go through the game. But for now, we'll focus on Rico himself and how he gets around Salice, the new world in Just Cause 4. And because we have these magical powers, Rico's got a friend that has an airplane company. Clearly, he will drop him giant crates from the sky. And in this crate, of course, is a jet fighter. It's exactly how real life works. Rico will now get in the plane, and despite it not really being a runway or a place you should be able to take off a jet fighter, we'll use this bit of concrete as a would-be runway, and we're away. That's it. We're flying around. Of course, it is an open world. Anything you can see, you can get to. There's no restrictions, no obstacles. So even that tiny little, there's a tornado there again, but even these tiny dots you can see on the horizon, if you want to fly there, you absolutely can. And they will 100% be something to do. And the way I can guarantee that is by drawing your attention to these icons in the top left-hand corner of the screen, the diamonds, the triangles. They're letting you know the objectives and missions that are currently in the area that you can go and choose to do, should you so wish. And the reason they come and go is because the more you move forward, you know, you're leaving some missions behind you, but you're finding some new missions that are ahead of you. And that's the idea of Just Cause 4, from start to finish. No matter where you are, you're going to have all these missions. You're going to have all these things to interact with. So it doesn't matter that the world would be nothing if it was massive to nothing to do within it, but there is so much to do with it, so you'll never ever be bored. But it's Just Cause, so you don't even have to worry about that stuff if you don't want. If you just want to play around, and you just want to bomb random facilities, you can do that too. That didn't achieve anything. But you can do it should you so wish. But on top of that, Just Cause 4 also has the biggest and most in-depth narrative story the franchise has ever done. So if you like narrative-driven games, you can experience that here as well. You can see this sandstorm, this big cloud to the left of us. Sound like a weather reporter. But that is the second extreme weather effect I'm going to show you today. We're not going to fly into it during this demo, but you can. And when you're in there, it's going to affect your visibility, it's going to affect combat, it's going to affect the way the game plays, and you can use it to your advantage. If an enemy's on your tail, for example, or you need to get out of the way, you can fly into that sandstorm, and it's going to affect their visibility, and it's going to affect their, what they can see too, so maybe you can use that to get them to crash their airplane, or even turn the tides on them, or you can just ignore it. They come and go as they wish, much like the real weather does. They're all procedurally generated, so you never ever know when they're going to affect your game. Just saw Rico do a barrel roll there. He can also loop the loop. He can go left, right, up, down, in diagonal, should he so choose. The point being, although the aeroplane is only a small part of what you can do in Just Cause 4, that aeroplane controls and will do everything you expect an aeroplane to do. It's not like any corners have been cut just because it's a big open world game. It's like Jurassic Park, no expense spared. Every little thing that you interact with is going to interact with in the way that you want. And of course, when you get bored of that plane, you don't want to do anything anymore. There's no responsibility, no consequences, games. You jump out and it explodes. Done. We're done with it. Which brings us to our second environment, which is the desert, as I'm sure you can tell. Now the cool thing about the desert is you can get on this buggy, and should you so wish, you can drive it to your heart's content. And as it is a desert, you can essentially treat Just Cause for a little while like it's an off-road racer. There's no obstacles, there's no hurdles. If, however, you drive that buggy to the rainforest, all of a sudden your game's going to be very different. There's going to be trees, there's going to be obstacles. You're not going to be able to drive it as recklessly as we're doing now. And that's just a small example to try and explain how each of these different locations will affect how you approach the game. Exploration in Just Cause 4 is still really important, so you're always going to come across these little villages, these little towns, and littered across the map are these challenges like this. We're just going to do a little maneuver through there. It's called a speed stunt. I'm not going to patronise you by explaining what a speed stunt is, but know that there's loads of those stuff throughout the entire game. Which brings us to the grappling hook, what I'm sure a lot of people want to know about. It still does exactly what it says on the tin, so it's a grappling hook. Rico will just grapple a few things together here to prove that's the case. But there's also a couple of new attachments that we haven't seen before, specifically this one, the airlifter, or the balloon as a lot of people call it, which will lift people up in the air. Boosters also returned from Just Cause 3, if I play Just Cause 3, they boost things around. But going back to the airlifters, those airlifters or balloons will pretty much attach themselves to anything in the world. So if you want to make those barrels go up, you can, but also, if you want to take this woman up in the air, well, that's fine too. And yes, I say this every time, I'll say it again, that woman is probably in a lot of trouble. You can't fall from that height and be okay. But we're on to something else so we don't have to worry about it. Now the really cool thing about Just Cause is, if you can see something in your mind's eye, you can try and create it in the game. So here we just have a standard food cart. Pretty dull, pretty non-exciting. But attach an airlifter to it, shoot the canisters beneath, and all of a sudden, we've created a sky surfboard. Now the cool thing about that is you can do it just for fun, for YouTube clips or whatever, but also if you're struggling with a certain mission or a certain objective, and you know that having a height advantage will help, you can create that and use it to progress through the game, to progress through the story. The reason there's so many options in Just Cause as well is thanks to the loadout and thanks to these modifiers. Now there is over 4 million combinations of these, which is probably why you're not going to have the same experience as somebody else. And what we've done here is, we've told those airlifters to follow Rico around while he's in the air. That means we can attach them to these red barrels, and we all know what red barrels do in video games, they're going to explode at some point. But the fact that we can now take to the skies and know that those airlifters are going to follow us around, it means we're in control, and now we've created air grenades. Once again, if you need air grenades in a mission, you can do it. If you just want to do what Rico chose to do here and destroy an innocent town because you've got no morals, you can absolutely do it. And this continues going on as well, because you're going to see a radar on your screen at the moment in the left-hand corner there, that white building. That's a radar. It's doing its thing, it's being a radar, it's having a great time. But if you've got more of a creative mind, you could look at it and go, well, it kind of looks a bit like a catapult. Well, you've got a grappling hook and you've got some other toys, so we grapple hook onto the top, we put it down, we grapple hook that end of the cart onto it, and then we're going to go around, we're going to do a bit of mechanical work, a bit of carpentry, we're going to create a pulley system, all of the goal of creating a makeshift catapult. Which we've done. We give that a tug, and then kapow. There's your makeshift catapult. We decided to throw that poor person's car across the world. No need to do that. What did that guy do? Imagine you got out of work and you found your car upside down and on fire. But once again, Rico doesn't care. Now I understand, they're all cool examples, but you may want a bigger example too. Which is why our aeroplane friend is going to swing back by in a couple of seconds, and he's going to drop us a brand new toy, which we're then going to muck around with simply because we can. It's not a plane this time though, because what would a Just Cause demo be without a giant tank? Now it's a weirdly painted tank, but I'm sure we can get around that. We're going to go back into our modifier menu to show how these options work. So what we're going to do here is we're going to tell our airlifters at the altitude or the height we want them to float, and we're going to tell our boosters that we want them to push down to create some upward momentum. Now, it's important to note, the way the airlifters work, if you want to lift up something heavy like a tank, you're going to need as many airlifters as you have, because it all works on physics. And the reason it works on physics is thanks to the new Apex engine, which is brand new for Just Cause 4, and has allowed the team to make all these things possible. So a tank's quite heavy, so we need a lot of airlifters to do it. We need to make sure we got enough boosters on it. However, once you've done a bit of trial and error, and you've figured out all the parameters you need, you can grapple hook to this hatch, you can get in, you trigger all that stuff, and that's right, ladies and gentlemen, now we have an air tank. Now I know there's loads of tanks at EGX, I know there's other games over there, they may have tanks, but I went and looked, none of them have air tanks, and I guarantee you having an air tank is better than having a tank that rides around on the ground. And once again, just to drive the point home, you can do what Rico's doing now, just destroy buildings because you fancy it, or you can bring this into a mission. And what mission isn't going to be easier, than having an air tank? I think it's going to help you out quite a lot. And you can also go through the entirety of Just Cause 4 and never even know that an air tank is possible if you don't experiment around with these things. It is 2018 though, everybody's got short attention span, so Rico thinks he's done with that. He flies away, leaving the air tank to be some evidence for UFO conspiracies for a while. Government can deal with it. And now we'll wind the demo forward on a little bit, so I can show you some new weapons, new environments, and other things you can do in the game. Straight away when we go here, you'll see environments very different to the desert, more grass, more greenery, more of the rainforest vibe, more of the grasslands vibe. Maybe a bit more cozy. And now I'm going to show you a new weapon in Just Cause 4, known as the wind gun. I'm sure you can figure out what the wind gun does. If you need to know though, it fires wind. Which means you can go out to these cardboard crates here, you can knock them off the edge, who needs them? But if you're a bit more sadistic and a psychopath, you can also go blow these two people off the end as well. Don't forget, Rico has no idea how far down that goes. He just knocks them off because he feels like he can. Every single new weapon in Just Cause 4 as well, though, has a secondary fire. Here, we have the wind burst, and with the wind bursts, you can do this. Just blow things off their hinges. And the cool thing about doing it there is, you can then grapple hook onto it, create your own momentum, and essentially launch yourself back into flight. The reason that's so important is because a lot of people in Just Cause only want to fly around. That's their favourite thing. They want to see how long they can keep Rico in the air using his wingsuit and using his parachute. And that's why Avalanche has added at Square Enix, have added in these updrafts, these like gusts of wind coming from the floor. So if you're strategic enough, you can use those to continually keep Rico in the air. However, we know what's going to happen when we take a parachute over these updrafts, because of physics, we've explained all that. But we now have a wind gun. And that introduces something brand new to the equation, because as we're going up, if we fire the wind gun, that is going to fire Rico backwards because of momentum, and now you're essentially reversing a parachute. Now, I don't know whether you know this, but parachutes aren't meant to do that. A parachute is meant to stop you falling and just dying, essentially, if you jump out of a plane. So it's just a small example to show how you can combine new weapons, the parachute, and all your momentum to do things you may not necessarily have been able to do before. And also that you can use to your advantage should you be mucking around, or should you be trying to, get past a mission that you may not have been able to do before. We've spoiled the demo on a little bit more as well, to show you the third weather effect in Just Cause 4, at least on this Just Cause 4 demo. There is more that we're not talking about today. And this is the lightning storm. You can already see the atmosphere has changed, the ambience has changed, we've got rain sprinkling down on the screen. And the really cool thing about lightning is the way it works in Just Cause 4 is that it will attack whatever is the highest object on the map at that time. And Rico, our man here, he counts as one of those objects. So if you now go too high, you are running the risk of being struck with lightning. So obviously the mission here, we're just at a meteor lab at the moment. The mission here is to deploy lightning rods, because you know that lightning rods are going to attract that lightning away from you, and you lose that risk reward. At the moment, you shouldn't really be flying around in case you get zapped. However, now that we have launched this lightning rod, we know we've got a bit of leeway, because that very handily, there we go, there's a bit of lightning, thank you video game. In any other scenario, that may have struck us down, but we've deployed the lightning rod, and that's taken the focus away from this. And this doesn't just affect Rico, it affects his enemies, and it affects enemy AI as well, and in a few seconds I'll show you what I mean by that. But as Rico is flying around destroying stuff here, it's important to let you know too that chaos returns to Just Cause 4. And what I mean by that, if you don't know, if you've never played a Just Cause game before, the more chaos you create, the more destruction you rain down onto the world of Solis, the more of Rico's exploits will fly around the world. They will hear about this guy trying to launch a revolution, and they indeed will help Rico get involved with that revolution. Because the whole point of Just Cause is to overthrow the evil dictatorship that's holding everybody under its thumb. So destroying these canisters here, that's going to go across the world, and soon you're going to have more people in your army. And it's just fun to blow up canisters. That's true too. So as we said, Rico's been running around. He's destroying essentially millions of pounds worth of material in this facility. That's obviously going to annoy some people. You'll see a helicopter in the background in a second as these people try and decide they'd like Rico to stop this. All of a sudden you've got a choice. You can, should you so wish, ignore the lightning, stay low, hope that it doesn't affect you too badly. Or you can try and use it to your advantage once you start getting chased by our friends, which will appear in a matter of seconds. Because if you're in a lightning storm and if you've got somebody on your tail, if you get to that highest point of the map and you tease that lightning, and then at the last minute you nosedive down, the lightning instead will attack the people that have been chasing you, or potentially your enemies and the people on your tail won't even follow you up there because they're more than aware of how lightning works in Just Cause 4. And if you saw any of the promotional videos before we start this presentation, our next presentation, enjoy EGX.
Bit big.
It's too small for his head and it's too big for your head.
It fits Josh.